A common term that we have that's bandied about a lot right now is escape velocity. And it sounds amazing, escape velocity. Now, if we're going to define the term escape velocity very quickly and very easily to digest for our conversation, it is basically that you have crossed a certain threshold. You've reached a certain level of success where you no longer have to be as concerned by the outside forces that are designed within the systems that we live in to hold you and keep you at the bottom. You no longer have to be as concerned about the people who govern you, nor the people who profit off of you as much. You have escaped, quote unquote, the matrix to some degree. You have enough success and or notoriety that the two together culminate in you receiving enough of an economic reward that you're capable of sustaining a greater lifestyle than when you were at the bottom. When you reach escape velocity at that point, most of what you can do or have to do at the minimum is just maintain that velocity. You just have to maintain it, right? So it changes at that point. Now, some people, that is never enough and they keep building velocity over time. So that's what we're gonna talk about. How do you build velocity? How do you get to escape velocity? In order to get velocity, you have to build up momentum. So initially you're going to need power, and then you're going to have to develop power into speed, and then speed into momentum over time. Over time, you develop momentum, and eventually this will culminate into velocity. So how do you gain velocity in your life? How do you build momentum to gain velocity in your life? Okay, the only way I have ever heard of anybody who's either hyper successful and or hyper productive, the only way I've ever heard people build momentum in their lives towards their goals, towards their passions, towards their ambitions, whatever it is, any endeavor that they choose, is by developing and being maniacal about their systems, processes, and routines. Now, this is the thing. None of that is mind-blowing information. What is going to surprise you a little bit, most likely, is your routine just has to be designed around you. What legitimately makes you the most optimized to be able to produce the highest quality productivity in your day-to-day basis, right? And it just has to be designed around you. Now, we can take it to, if you want to take it all the way to the extreme, we can use Tim Ferriss. Tim Ferriss and the 4-hour work week. I feel that's a little bit too extreme and would put the wrong idea into people's heads. So we can say, even though that is at the furthest extreme, I would say that a 4-hour work day would be most likely something that you could sustain and create success. Now, if we go to the other side, and I don't believe that about Tim Ferriss, as much shit as he does, that dude's got to be a workaholic. But anyways, we go to the other extreme. We go to someone like, Alex Hermosi, Jeff Bezos. These dudes, Mr. Beast is a great example. These guys just work. That's all they do is work. They work. Now here's the thing. What they qualify as work may not always be what you would think is actually work. But for them, it might be. So for any one of these, well, just these guys, we can take this out. If you're doing 4-hour work day, 4-hour work week, you got plenty of time. But we can take these guys over here, these hyper productive people. Man, most likely going to the gym is part of their routine. Going for a run is part of their routine. Reading is part of their routine. Meditating is part of their routine. Those things which do not culminate in high levels of immediate productivity towards their goals are contributing to high quality levels of productivity in their life. They are contributing factors. So reading, studying, family time, whatever that is for them. So this is the thing. Believe it or not, even something as ludicrous sounding as naps. If a nap, and when I say a nap, I mean like 10, 15 minutes, not 2 fucking hours, not a half an hour. That's not a nap. You went to bed. Those are not the same thing. But let's say that like a 10, 15 minute nap actually puts you in a position to where you are the most optimized to be highly productive in a high quality fashion. Then naps should be a regular part of your routine. and you should be maniacal about making sure that you take them when you're supposed to take them so that you can be as productive as you are normally capable of being after those naps. So your routine just has to be designed around what optimizes you the most. I go to a gym. This is for instance, right? I go to a gym that is kind of a distance away. And a lot of people, when they find out how far I drive, they're like, damn, I would, you're willing to drive that far for the gym? And I'm like, yeah, for two reasons. One, I really enjoy my gym. I enjoy the community that we have there, and it's a very nice gym. I like the gym itself a lot, and I like the people that are in the gym. That's one element to it. The other element is the drive there and the drive back are important for me on a day-to-day basis because I use that time to think. I like to drive and think. I love to go to walk for walks and to think as well, but I like to drive and go to think and to be able to think. So those drives there and the drive back are actually very important for me on a day-to-day basis because they allow me time to ruminate and to process things and just try to consider new things. So to tie this in a little bit, when I was in prison, I had a guy, and I used to sit in my room. I created an intellectual IP while I was in prison. In order to be able to do this, I had to think for long hours at a time. So I would think for like 3, 4, 5 hours, and then sometimes only be able to write for like 10 minutes afterwards. So the ROI on it isn't really high, right? But the quality was very good. The quality was good. The volume was not. But I had a friend. Man, he was like, man, every time I walk by, because my door would be open, he's like, I just see you sitting in that chair staring up at the shelves. And I'm like, man, he must be going through it in there. And I was like, nah, man, I'm thinking. I'm working on something and I'm trying to put it together. So I have to think, like I just told you, I told him and everybody that was there, oh, man, I have to think for like 4 or 5 hours just to be able to write for a few minutes. You know what I mean? So I have to sit there and think. So after that, it became this thing about when somebody was going to go sit in the room and think or work on something or whatever, they'd be like, I'm going to go stare at my shelves. So my point is, if you saw what I was doing like he did, you would not think that I was working as hard as I was. My brain was racing. I was racking my brain. I was beating my head against the wall. You just couldn't see it. Same thing for certain parts of a routine that actually highly optimize you. If you have to get up, if you like getting up and then going for a walk first, there's nothing wrong with that. If you have to do what's the Pomodoro method or whatever, where you just have to work 15 minutes, get up for 5 minutes, work for 15 minutes, get up for 5 minutes, that's fine too. If you're a person that you're like, no, I need to get up at 4:30 and I need to be at my computer at 5 and I need to grind for the next 15 and a half hours. I take 2 pee breaks and I hold it between those 2 times. I have 14 cups of coffee and I do this and I do this. If that is legitimately what is making you the most level, getting you the highest level of productivity with the highest level of quality with it, then that's fine. That's for you. It's fine. My point is, this is my whole point. You need to sit down. This is my challenge to you. And I mean this, man. Really sit down and figure this out. You need to sit down, figure out what is it that makes you the most optimized throughout your day. What is it? Even if you're realizing as you think about it, you're like, actually, I never noticed this, or I felt bad when I used to do this, but if I do this specific thing, I'm actually a lot more productive after or before it. Man, then you should be doing those things. You don't need to worry about what your routine looks like to or compared to other people's. It just needs to be what optimizes you the highest. I think it was Einstein. Einstein purposely got a job, mailroom or something, UPS, I don't know, something like that, where he could just stare out the window for hours and imagine. That's how he was able to develop all the stuff that he was able to develop. Now, if somebody walking by would have looked up at Einstein and this fool's just sitting out the window like this, they'd have been like, that is a lazy ass dude. Holy shit, that dude, no wonder he works there. He ain't never gonna be shit in his whole life. And then voila, this fool turned out he's a fucking genius. You know what I mean? He changed science up, put science upside down. So my point is, sit down, really, truly think about it and really be honest with yourself. Don't fucking lie. Don't say, well, I gotta sleep. I have to sleep in every day, and then I need a huge breakfast, and then I need a nap for 2 hours, and then I need to be able to do this other thing, and this other thing, and then this other thing, so that I can do a little bit of work. No, 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 no. That is not how that's supposed to work. These are things that are going to optimize you for working, not take place or be distractions of working. So sit down and think about what routine, what actually makes you the most optimized. I have a routine, right? I get up very early in the morning. I used to love getting up very early in the morning. Now I'm getting up at about 6. So anywhere between 5 and we can even say up to 6:30. I'm getting up and I get in front of my computer. Now I have my first cup of coffee at that point. Sometimes I get to working right away, depending on what is laid out in front of me at that moment. Sometimes I'm doing research, but a lot of times I'm just thinking, trying to get things together in my head. And it's usually a little later in the morning that I'm going to be hyper productive. Sometimes it's actually after into the afternoon that I'm the most productive. Same thing with these videos. I have a process for these videos. Now, I don't do these until usually the afternoon and sometimes the evening. I don't ever do them early in the morning. That's very, 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 very rare because I have a process and I have a system. When I sit in front of this camera, I have a system and a process that I go through before I get in front of the camera. I know what I have to do before I get in front of here to be ready as I can be for this video. Figure out what makes you the most optimized. You want to be highly optimized to the nth degree if possible. Figure out what it is that puts you in that space and then make sure you place yourself, you do the things that are necessary to put you in that space as often as possible. And you got to be maniacal about it. That doesn't mean that it can't change over time. That doesn't mean that you can't make some changes here and there. It doesn't mean you can't be flexible. It just means that you have to find the one thing, whatever those things are that optimize you the most to get the highest quality work from yourself, even if it's not the highest level. I mean, if it's not the highest volume, that's okay. We're more worried about quality than we are volume. If volume will eventually take care of itself, just like doing this thing, doing your routine, making sure you're doing your things, and sticking to your routine over time builds momentum. And it's through building that momentum that you will eventually reach escape velocity. I have never heard of a single person, regardless of how disheveled or disorganized they appeared and they looked, which would also include Einstein, they all had a routine. They all had systems and processes. They all had things that if they were stuck on a problem, they had something that they would do, whether it was go to the lake, walk by the lake, or whatever it was, so that they could clear their mind and they can think about the things that they're trying to think about. Whatever it is you're trying to accomplish in this world, there's going to be a routine that is specifically tailored to you. You have to create it that'll help you be highly optimized towards accomplishing those goals. Over time, that will build into momentum. Consistently doing it over time creates its own momentum. That will be the only way you ever reach escape velocity.